kind of a big job, wasn't it, to get all this?
Not bad, love.
Oh, good.
Run down at the end of this table.
When we lived here, and we just started housekeeping and bought a wash machine and a heating stove and a rug. And when the crash came, just try and find something to pay for that stuff over the next 2 or 3 years. Pretty trying times. The younger people do not know what hard times are like. They think they're having a hard time, and they are living like kings and queens compared to how we had to live during part of that depression. My friend here, my wife passed away with Alzheimer's disease. She knows a lot about that experiences. She lived in a sod house in Nebraska when she was little. She knows what hard times are. And I hope we don't ever have them again. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming here today. Now, who all can remember that they were his students? Okay. Would you like to say your names and what you remember about the school? Churchill will start with you, okay?
I remember last one with him trying to keep it going. And then I remember when he was in the scouts, he was doing anybody was a potato, and when the clerk got the cook down to get the shell left in the scouts. I thought, oh, that's never good.
I adopted me when he was here, because I was in his house most of the time. And, well, when he talked about his first boy, I was up there in a lot, and we'd go to basketball games Van Day. Back here in the winter time, he had that Ford Roadster in the snow. You couldn't see where the road was, so we'd take turns. We'd lay on the front bumper with a flashlight to see the track. We'd go about long enough to be cold, and then change, and you'd drive while he rode out there. We've done that many times. And I used to always be out all the time, so it was like home to me. Same way with Mrs. Davis, too. About the same with her. I was always down at her house. And I think of course, when I was being at everybody's house.
And what is your name? I didn't.
Dick Brown.
You're Dick Brown, okay. Now, how are you related to Pauline? Are you?
I'm her brother.
Oh, okay. Now, were you here at the time too, Pauline? Yes. Oh, okay.
I remember we were and we lived across railroad tracks here, you know, and just nothing to do it there. It's cool all the time. And I think about it quite often. And the treat to come today and just get the chance to see so many of you and just remember a few things that happened.
Okay, now Esther and Rose, were you here then too? And and Roger was here then.
Well, did Glenn Hartman go home?
Yeah, Glenn left.
Oh.
Oh, good. I can tell that story. If Raymond can keep me straight on it. I remember one time when I was little, but I thought the school was going to tip over. Glenn did something, and Mr. Brees was after him, and I think he was out through that window. Mr. Brees right after him, and he caught him down there. And when they were out there, that's when I thought the school was gonna tip over, because the whole school was over there looking out. That's a true story. I might maybe a little off, but I'm not much off on it.
It's Roger when he was a little boy, and we're going to pass this around so everybody can see his picture. Don't hold back. Just tell everything you can remember about any of these youngsters. We want to hear about it.
Well, first of all, I went here to school. And I can remember the map case up here that had a door that let down, and they pulled the maps down from there. There was a trap door to the basement right about there. And this was another classroom, and that was the hallway. And Lucy Conley taught in there, Lucy Garwood at that time. And Sam Norton taught in this room. And I very distinctly remember Wilbur Reinhardt sitting there somewhere and blowing a paper wad at Lucy when she opened the door for the class to come out. And immediately a whip came down from up there. Wilbur kind of got the works. And that's one of the things I remember as I went here to school. It scared me to death. And another time, my brothers always tell me about this. They used to water this hill slide on. They'd put water in it, it'd be beautiful sliding clear down in my folks' backyard. And being crummy kid that I was, I forgot to turn there and went right into the girls' toilet. And that wasn't a very pleasant experience. Coming back to teaching here, I had some very fine children. I loved them. I had many as 32 at one time, and we really had some good times. And I think they're memories that you'll never forget.
She had some great Christmas programs too.
Thank you.
Oh, now were you were one of her students?
No, I used to come to her Christmas programs because they were always so good.
Okay, are any of her students here that would like to reminisce? Roger.
I can tell one on this day. We used to choose upside and play softball. Home plate was back there. What was the building across the street that?
The Methodist.
The what?
The Methodist.
Methodist Church, the churchyard. This lady had a black back, about this long and about this big around. None of us could lift hardly. She was left-handed, and she batted left-handed. And I've chased many balls clear over across the road in that churchyard, and she hit.
Kids won't remember.
Okay, and Mr. Murray, you were?
Sure. I was a student of George's, and we used to, in the wintertime, we used to play in the basement of this church, or in the school, quite a bit, as I recall. And there was a big trap door there, and we'd all come up when recess was over, and the door would be closed. And I remember one time, I think it was one of the Churchill boys, decided that they were going to lock me in the cellar. And I can remember sitting on the steps beating on that door until Dorothy came over and opened it. And I think she chased one of the boys out through the yard with a club after that.
That's something. Now, where did the Murrays live when they were here?
The Murrays lived, well, I'll tell you, in a couple of houses over in this direction. Across the railroad track. We lived in two different houses there.
Okay, and where do you live now?
I live in Niles.
Niles?
Yes, after 40 years or so.
Okay, anybody else with, okay, would you like to say your name?
I'm Dorothy Shooter. I'm his sister. I'm the oldest one of the
Oh,
family.
okay.
And I thought having school here was just great. And I think Dorothy gave us an excellent school here. We had good basic schooling.
Oh, good. Okay, anybody else want to reminisce about Dorothy being a teacher here? Okay, let's see, we'll move on to, I guess, Iola. You'd be next in line. Iola Holtz was a teacher here, and many of you knew her as Iola Rice.
Yeah, I only taught in 1 year, and it was one of the wartime years, 44, 45, and I think I had about 24 students. And we collected iron and we collected newspapers, and did everything trying to help out the war effort. And I had a lot of good students that really worked hard, and I can't think of anything that real bad that happened here. I know that I had a terrible time getting here in the wintertime because the snow was so deep, so I used to stay with Maynard and Helen Wilson when the weather was bad. And that's
Okay, I think there was a poem that we were going
you want
to
me
read.
to read?
I almost forgot about that. We're going to have her read a poem. I asked her to read.
This is a poem about the one-room school. I remember when I went to school, some of us walked, some rode a mule. To that one-room house up on a hill went Mary and I and Fred and Will. Our one teacher had 40 scholars. Her monthly wage was $60. And that's what I started teaching at in 1940, $60 a month. She taught 8 grades from 9 to 4, then banked the fire and swept the floor. Her subjects were not just 2 or 3. She taught them all from A to Z. And then she taught us how to spell in the one-room school we loved so well. Seated 2 in a seat, our faces red, we tried to grasp what the teacher said. Lunch was a homemade sandwich or 2, no cafeteria to serve hot stew. We needed no gym to make us strong. The 2-mile walk home was plenty long. I'm told kids are learning more today from specialized teachers with higher pay. But I remember that one-room school where we were all taught the golden rule.
That's lovely. Thank you. Now, are any of Iola's students here? No, no one's here. Okay. Well, we must have, now I know that Rose and Esther went to school here, so I want to hear from you and who your teachers were. Esther, you want to stand up and reminisce a little bit?
Well, our last teacher we had Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Noaker, I started with Miss Fox, and ended up with Bertrand Long. And Long's called me last night and wanted to express their appreciation. They were invited to this and wish they could have come today, but they had other plans. They were here last time we had our reunion. And then he was our 8th grade teacher, and he was a very good teacher. The one thing I'd like to ask George, do you remember when you and Donald went to high school? You rode in the cutter?
Right on.
And
We tipped over.
I remember hearing her and Donald talk about that. What else I have to say? I got some pictures here or back when Vern Dussel was our teacher. And one when Mrs. Carpenter was here. When Mrs. Carpenter was here, we had a Briar Patch School burned. And the students all came down here that year. And we made our quite large that year. I remember Pauline and Brother Bert and Dick. They lived right there in Bend, pretty my close neighbors as far as I go just up the hill. Pauline said this morning she could remember hearing my grandfather call the pig. But we had some good times here. I can remember a lot of things, and that's probably I'm pretty near the oldest here. Not too much, I don't think.
Margaret.
Yeah, she's a little bit older. But I'm glad to see so many of our ones that have gone to the school. We get a chance to visit with them and see them again.
I was just thinking, now there must have been a stove here at the school, right? You didn't. Oh, you had some registers. Furnace. So
Big register right up there where you got to see.
So you didn't have to have a stove. This was quite a modern school then, wasn't it? Did you have a wood furnace?
I built the fire many a time. I guess we didn't have coal.
Oh, okay.
We did have some.
Later on, as I was maybe 12 or so, I had the job of, the school district hired me, and I took care of the furnace. I kept it going,
Carry the ashes out.
I came right out the back, and I came over early every morning, and we kept the fire going all winter, during the day, except on weekends. And I used to come over here. I think it was just before they got electricity here, and took care of the furnace.
That was cold. That we used to carry the ashes off the back door.
Back,
basement.
yeah.
And I remember one time, trying to start the furnace. You know how coal gets real, and I lit a paper and threw it, and I burned the front of my skirt just like that. And I dashed home and changed my clothes.
Now, where did you live when you were here?
Right over there, just
Where Doris Hudson
there
lives
now.
now?
Beyond that, house along the road.
Where Mayor Helen used to live. You remember Mayor Helen?
Okay.
Last house on the way out, Andy Candy used to live there, they even trucking Bob used to live there.
It's on the corner, where, over there, that little yellow house comes down in the.
Well, I thought she said, well, she was brought up in that house, but she and her husband lived in the house across the street. Bob and Dorothy lived
Yeah,
on
we
the
lived at,
top.
it used to be Grandma's, it was Grandma's house originally.
Yeah.
But Doc and I owned it at one time, and I think Wilbur Davis lived there at one time. And my brother Maynard.
Yeah, Maynard lived there.
Oh,
We used to tip it over on Halloween, you remember?
Yes.
Okay,
I wouldn't mention any of the fellows that didn't help me do that.
Mrs. Schreiner, or am I pronouncing it right? Schreiner.
You mean Margaret Shaker?
Shaner, yeah. Would you like to stand up? Now so you may be,
Sister to George.
oh, okay. I'm getting the connection now. Would you like to reminisce a bit?
Well, many a time I flew a ball over the schoolhouse.
Wow.
And, many games we played. I remember many teachers, and I also remember Mrs. Conley, because one time Frances Carson tore her sleeve out, and another time I tore part of her cuff. She wanted to make us go up in front of the class and do what we were doing up there. And I knew I wasn't supposed to lick the candy in school, but I did. And she caught me. I didn't go up there, but I was guilty. And I don't know what Francis did, but he did something. And poor woman, and actually, when I got a little older, I admired her. And she was a very attractive person. And I've always said myself, I always liked school. I like to go to school, and you can learn so many things from other people.
Now, so you're in the Churchill family. Now, where did you folks, pardon me?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. And where did you folks live when you went to school here?
A
then?
mile north of here.
Oh,
On the
okay.
four corners of Penn.
Where Robin and Carol used to live.
Okay. Karen Hoffman then, huh?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, and Ruth Collum. Now, I know you went to school here. Would you like to reminisce a little bit?
The biggest thing I always remember is that mile and a half I had to walk morning and night to get here and get back. That I hated. But I had some good times here. She's talking about throwing the ball where we used to play Annie over it, over the school.
Who was your teacher, Ruth?
And Mrs. McPhee.
Mrs. Who?
Mrs. McPhee.
What was your maiden name?
Elsie.
It was.
Elsie McPhee.
I remember you. Where's your brothers and sisters?
This is my sister-in-law.
George. George. He's in Niles.
Is that right?
Dixon. Betty from California. Helen. Yeah. Out here. And George Kerr. That's how that's how in my church. And her mother also lives out there. Yeah, about there. That's a good time. I learned here. I used to think it was bigger.
Yeah.
I always said, Pleasant Hill School, she is north of us right there. And I always said to her, this school is a lot smaller than Penn School was. Penn School was probably twice the size. Until I come back 7 years ago to the reunion. And I said to her, shoot, this room isn't any bigger than what Pleasant Hill School was. That's about it.
That's like that little pit that's back at the school, that they used to put coal or whatever they did. Boy, when I was here, that used to seem so big. If you ever got down that pit, you'd be lost. And I remember somebody got down there just once in a while. It wasn't me. And anyway, so, you look at it now, it looks so small. Just shows you when you're young. Okay, we have one more teacher here, and that's someone who's very dear to my heart because she's my teacher. And I just really used to enjoy listening to her talk about history, and I still consider her a friend today, and that's Dorothy Shug. Would you like to stand up and reminisce?
Yeah. Jean told me she'd call on me, so I made a few notes. I usually time remarks, and I can do it all in 35 minutes anyway. I was here from 54 to 57. There's no use figuring out how long ago that was, because I wouldn't believe it anyway. I know it wasn't that long ago. There were a lot of things here that I enjoyed. In my rural school teaching, I taught in 4 schools. I taught at Little Fish Lake and Star, and I know a lot of days I would go home after teaching all day and feel as though I haven't seen anybody all day. I haven't talked with anybody. Then I went to Post School, and that was on the crossroads, and there was more going on there. There was the Township Hall across the road, and the cemetery, and the church over across, and the Ladies' Aid used to meet there. I used to see people every once in a while. And I can remember lots of days there of walking around in the room pronouncing spelling words to the children, and all the time looking out the window at a burial that was going on over in the cemetery. That makes something to remember for that day. And every school was a little more up and up. And then I came to Penn School, and we had indoor toilets, and we had a hardwood floor that you didn't have to be careful to just sweep between every crack. And I think it was the first school I was in with an automatic furnace. So I really enjoyed that part of it. The first year I was here, I believe there was a garden club that sent me to Higgins Lake Camp for a week, conservation. And I've always appreciated that. That was such a nice experience. When I taught here, there was a lot of the time that I drove a truck to school, and I can not a little pickup truck. It was a 3/4-ton Ford truck that had been an Army truck. And I can remember thinking one day, I bet I'm the only teacher in Cass County that drove his truck to school with a load of corn on it. But that seemed to be the handy way to do it, so I enjoyed the truck. And I can remember a couple of days when I hurried off and I forgot my lunch. So I sent one of the Kent boys or one of the shoe boys down with a little note to their mother. I forgot my lunch. Could you make me a sandwich at noon? And the lunches they sent, seems to me I remember tuna fish salad and a great big piece of homemade pie. I know it has been made that morning. I felt like royalty.
Boy, I forget my lunch all the time then if I were you.
And I can remember Susan Wilson one day she was a beginner, and she ran in to tell me she's going to marry a certain boy. I thought that was nice. But the next day she ran in and told me she's not going to marry him. She's going to marry somebody else. I like that. While I was here, some large swings were installed. There must have been about 4 of them, and a nice baseball backstop that I appreciated. The PTA did it. And when we were doing the planning, I also told them I thought it would be nice to have a sandbox for the little children to play in. They thought so too. But we never got the sandbox. I just never did it. And probably about the time I was going to leave, I mentioned to somebody, well, we never got our sandbox. No, they said the sandbox was nice for the little children to play in, but it was far more interesting for the neighborhood cats to come. So I understood, wasn't that nice of them? They could just as well have said to me, was stupid. You ought to know better than putting a sandbox open out in the schoolyard, but they didn't. And I remember our Christmas programs. One year I had a lot of boys, so I don't know whether Dwayne was here then or not. I had a play that was all boys in it, and it was a history thing There was a haunted house, and the boys went into it, and they got scared. When we come to the last day to practice, we were going to give it that night. The boys did it, and they deadpanned it. They didn't use one bit of expression. When the big noise come that scared them to pieces, they said, "What's that?" Not even that expressively. I never said a word to them. I just acted like, right, guys all learn. We're going to be all ready, 'cause I knew those boys. And when nighttime come, they just did it the way I knew that they would do it. I think they thought they were going to bother me. And I appreciated Reverend Hyatt so much. I always went to him when we had an emergency or something. I remember one morning, one little youngster had a bug fly in his ear. And I couldn't leave the school, so we sent word to Mr. Hyatt. He called the boy's mother. She couldn't come, so he took the boy to the doctor. And so many things that he did for us. That was when he had the boys' 4-H in the basement. And I also remember a lot of nice Christmas gifts that were given to me. And I still have them, and I still look at them, and I remember who gave them to me. It's a nice appreciation. I take a great deal of pride in some of the students that I've had here. I don't know what happened to all of them. I work with Bob Meppel in church work constantly, and with his family. That's an enjoyment. And I couldn't live without Jean. We belong to the same things, and we work together, and we see things alike. And then Butch Hagan was here, and this summer I needed a new car, so I thought I wanted to buy it from Butch, and I went over there. And I told the salesman that came out that I had been Butch's teacher, so he called Butch on the phone, and he talked with me, and he told the salesman to give me a good deal, be good to me. And I still can feel how thick was the red carpet they rolled out. Well, I bought the car, and it was just a real pleasure. I know there's, oh yes, and I've been so proud of Ruth Shattuck, with her handicap, the marvelous things she has done with children. She's such a beautiful gal. And there's so many others that I take a lot of pride in. I like to say, I was their teacher. Penn was a nice experience for me.
I know, we do belong to a lot of organizations together, and for the longest time I would call her Mrs. Shug, and finally she said, you know, you can call me Dorothy. that was hard to get used to. While we're still reminiscing, we do have some rent we have to pay for this building. We thought we'd pass a hat. So does anybody have a hat? Roger, do you have a hat to pass around?
Well, I see one I could borrow.
Or we've got
A watch part right over there. It's like blew up and let's see on the stuff.
Okay, and Dwayne, how about you? What do you think of?
Yeah.
I can't remember that photograph.
Can't remember that photograph. I think it's the older you can back, I don't know. Took after your father, right?
Yes, yes. Just like, and I was short, and I don't know if it was when Mrs. Shook first came in. I think we had a new teacher, and I was sitting there, and I was little, so she thought I was in a grade lower than I was, and I wouldn't tell her. So they just kept handing me these papers, you know, for second graders or first graders, and finally, one of the older kids told her that I was in a different grade. But I also remember Miss Van Zelfte came after Mrs. Shook. She was here, and she married Roger Locke, became Mrs. Locke, and she taught us for several years, and I think it was at that time that I decided to be a teacher, because I really enjoyed school. I liked school, and I think that's when I first started thinking about it. So I went to school to be a teacher and taught high school for a few years, and had my family. Now I'm teaching in adult education, and I like it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
when we come in the wintertime, always laying our mittens over that great big register. Have our boots would be tipped upside down sometimes, we try to be inside out, but it's top of the road. And sliding out here on the road, we just kind of block that road off, go right on down around the horses.
Okay, and we've got the
Trombones and all this. Violin, yeah, he played the violin and sang, that's about really all I know.
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, that's a good memory. I forgot about it. I remember the libraries through there in the corner. You know, like everybody says, this is kind of gross, but my biggest memory is we all faced that way, and you know, little kids sat up front. And for 2 consecutive years, I was only here 3 years, kindergarten first and second, closed. I would get sick and I would throw up and I'd make a streak. So everybody was watching and nobody could get out because of it. Did that 2 years in a row.
Well, that's a good memory. Okay, Barb. Oh.
Just play a lot of softball. Bars for A's and spelling tests.
Oh, that's good. Well, here we have John and I own right.
Sorry you're late. We had something else here.
Oh. Well, we're just glad you could come. Rose and Esther.
So, John.
And, oh, John is here too. Yeah,
I got
okay.
the pictures of him anyhow.
Okay. Do you folks have any memories that you want to share with us? Memories. You barely see it, but you see the 2 doors. Do we know when those doors were changed? Does anybody have any idea? Well, okay, let me pick somebody. Iola, when you were here, did they have the 2 doors? Do you remember?
No. We didn't have a door back there either.
Oh, okay. So it was done probably before the war then. Mr. Brees, when you were here, were there 2 doors or the 1 door? Do you remember?
I think there was 2 out.
Uh-huh.
Underneath from the back, there was 2 registers, a big coal furnace.
Uh-huh.
Outside.
The first 3 grades used to meet in there. There was 2 teacher school at that time.
Uh-huh.
And the little folks sat out here and marched in there to their classes.
Roger. Oh,
Well, when I was here, Gene, the recitation seat was up there, and you opened the door on the floor to go down the basement right there.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know when that modification went, but it was after all that.
Uh-huh.
We used to go downstairs and fix fire right there.
There was no trap door sometimes.
Trap door, yeah.
Oh, and there's no trap door when you were here, Saturday. So Iola was here in 44, so the trap door must have been remodeled just before the war, maybe. But you were, Dorothy, you were here right before the war, right? Was that
30.
Okay, well, it was a little before then. Okay.
The track door was there.
Okay. Well, have we tickled your memories, John and Ione? Can you remember anything that you'd like to share with us?
My memory was only about 3 months of going to school here, that's all.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't too long. Who was your...
I went to Pleasant Hill the first 2 years, and I started 3rd grade here, but I didn't finish here. I went to Ohio.
Oh. Do you remember who your teacher was at all?
No, I should.
Mrs. Carpenter.
I believe it was.
Okay, Mr. Brees had something to share with us again. You had your hand up.
Well, there's 2 things. Just got this book.
Oh, the school that was.
And here, read a little of that.
Okay. The teachers will each day, this is for a list of rules for teachers in 1872. Teachers each day will fill lamps, clean chimneys. 2, each teacher will bring a bucket of water and a scuttle of coal for the day's session. 3, make your pens carefully. You may whittle nibs to the individual taste of the pupils. 4, Men teachers may take one evening each week for courting purposes, or 2 evenings a week if they go to church regularly. 5, after 10 hours in school, the teachers may spend the remaining time reading the Bible or other good books. 6, women teachers who marry or engage in unseeming conduct will be dismissed. And that was true back then. A teacher couldn't be married. I know Mother was teaching in Three Oaks when she got married, and she had to quit. 7, every teacher, well, I think she got married at the end of the school year. She had to quit in the middle. Every teacher should lay aside from each pay a goodly sum of his earnings for his benefit during his declining years, so that he will not become a burden on society. 8, any teacher who smokes, uses liquor in any form, frequents pool or public halls, or gets shaved in a barber shop will give good reason to suspect his worth, intention, integrity, and honesty. I didn't know barber shops. The teacher who performs his labor faithfully and without fault for 5 years will be given an increase of 25 cents per week in his pay, providing the Board of Education approves. That is incredible. Thank you.
Well, there's one thing I have thought of. It isn't very nice in a way to talk about, but can any of my students remember why we stood over there in the sunshine that's coming in that window every Friday night?
Spelling bee?
Go ahead and tell them why we stood there.
No, I don't know, I'm just guessing, is it a spelling bee when we used to line up on each side of the house?
I can't hear him.
So he said, is it because of a spelling bee?
No?
No. We had a louse hunt every Friday night. We'd line the whole school up there in the sunshine, and I'd look them over, and I'd make trips to the individual families to get rid of what we'd found. We fought them things and fought them here. Unbelievable.
George.
I remember where these lights came from.
Yeah? Okay, Dorothy has something to say.
When Rose and I were teaching, the reason why a school teacher in most schools would not be married was the aftermath of the Depression, that they didn't figure that married teachers should be taking the job away from somebody who needed the job. You had a husband to support you, whether they could or not.
To get back to this doorway business here that you were asking about earlier, I remember when the inside bathrooms were installed here at the school, and I think it was in 1936 or 1937, and that's when they eliminated the floor door and moved it out into the other. I don't know, where is the door now to the basement?
It's out there.
Yes, and that's when they moved that door out there because they closed up this door when they installed the bathrooms. It was before electricity was installed, and they weren't flush toilets, but they were inside bathrooms. But we poured water in them every day. A couple of buckets of water had to be poured in.
That's reminds me of another story that we have. My one brother, Jim, was accused of putting somebody's coat down in that toilet.
Which could have been easily done.
He said he didn't, but Mother and Dad had the coat clean. But I was hoping someday I'm going to ask him if he ever did do that, because, he said he didn't, so we don't know. Do you know, Lee?
I asked him, he still says no.
He still says he didn't do it. Oh, well. One of those memories.
So I think he's telling the truth.
Now, did anybody else go to school here that wants to reminisce? Because I don't want to miss anyone.
You didn't ask your mother.
Well, I thought I did. Mother, Rose. Any reminiscences?
Oh, we spent the hell out of us.
Anything you'd like to share?
I am so pleased that all of us could get together. And I think of about 80 envelopes that I addressed and tried to send to everyone and called. And the phone companies won't give addresses now. They just send you the number, of course. So I called a lot of them, and I know that it was, you know, that hit everyone's schedule, but just wonderful. And I am pleased that, you know, many of us have gone on to many other accomplishments of having schooling, and I'll tell you, we really had good basic education from that rural school, and I think maybe they're going to see part of that now. But we also had this family. It was just, wasn't it just like that? You had older ones and younger ones, and they kind of looked after them, and that had a lot of good family basics. I'm thankful that I can be here.
Another memory, remember the last day of the school, the last day of the year picnics, and we had that great big thing of ice cream. Does anybody remember that?
Sure, I do.
Yeah, that's a fun memory to have, you know. And
Is there anyone here at the school besides Rose and I when Mrs. Noyes?
oh, okay, the Browns did. Churchill.
She taught here 2 years, I think, wasn't it, Bert? Oh, and Dick?
I was in second grade. I always went to school.
We had a teacher here, a man teacher by the name of Schmidt when I went to school here also. And I also had a teacher by the name of Wright.
What was Sheila's first name? I heard that.
They lived on, plus in those days the roads didn't have names, so I don't really know what road it was, what they call it now, but I remember where they lived. They were somewhere in the neighborhood of the Bethel Church, I believe is where they lived.
Is that Lancaster line by any chance?
Pardon?
Lancaster line by any chance? She talked her.
No, this was Sheline. He was, a man. He had a son by the name of Lowell, Sheline, that went to school here, and I think he had a daughter also. Then it was a Wright that taught me for a year or two in there, somewhere between Dorothy Davis and Elsie McPhee. And they lived off in that direction, somewhere over there by Bethel School too, I believe, or Bethel Church.
Right, you're right.
Right. And I think her husband was maybe a township supervisor. Right? Steve Wright's wife, that's right.
Yeah.
another memory to remember is that Carl Pinchelo went to school here. That makes it kind
Yes,
of...
he was in the same grade I was.
Oh, he was. Oh. Well, you know, I went to a convention in Detroit this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I was sharing with someone that we were having this reunion and how few records we have. And she was saying that in their school, all the records are gone. And then there was a man there who was from the archives in Western Michigan University, and he said that all over the state, all of the records, nobody kept them. There wasn't a sense of history there. And it's unfortunate that we've lost, so many lists of records, but we're going to try and create a lot of this history and gather what we can bit by bit. Iola was just telling me she has a list of teachers, and so we'll try and get this together. And would you all be interested in having a reunion maybe in another 5 years? How many would be interested? Okay. Well, we'll try it. 2 years? You want it sooner? How many want one sooner than 5 years? Okay. I was wondering if could we maybe go out on the front steps and have a picture taken? Maybe especially we can have out front our 4 teachers that we have here, and all of the students that were here, and we can have a picture taken like we had back in the old days. Would that be kind of fun? Yes.
I just wanted to ask Courtney, show here a question. These teachers who weren't supposed to marry, did it ever happen that someone got married on the slide?
Oh, yes, there were lots of secret marriages. I knew one in Lake Odessa who, I boarded at the groom's family home. She was secretly married, and they had an automobile accident in vacation, and it came out in the newspaper, and she was in trouble. I don't know how it was resolved, but I'm sure there was lots of it. At that time, I went to Flint to teach, and Flint would hire married teachers, so they come from all directions to teach there. But Lansing wouldn't hire married.
Been at this school here,
Harold Church.
How are they related to you? Is he your brother or cousin? Like cousin. Okay, well, would all the former students come out onto the stage?
I've been trying to.
Well, my granddaughter works for Ed Lowe. My granddaughter,
Joe was so long. Oh my gosh, something talking. I'm in love with George.
Murray boys were okay. You were. Really, Marcellus.
I've been back there.
When did you?
Okay, hold on here, so we got to hurry.
You want them in the front, teachers in the front?
Where's Roger? Okay. Who else are we missing? Okay, here it goes. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Good, that was the last picture.
They say the